Technologies. Joining us now are two members of the committee who will be grilling Mr. Toyota, Democratic Congressman Dennis Kucinich of Ohio and Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah. Welcome to you both. What's the first question you intend to ask Mr. Kucinich?
Well, he's talking about a new standard. I mean, we're looking at the old standards. Were they aware that the electronic throttle control would override any braking and would essentially let a car run out of control, jeopardizing the life of the driver? And if they were aware of that, then there's criminal negligence involved if they covered it up. If they weren't aware of it, then that speaks to as part of Toyota's management culture, which on a manner that would almost be unfathomable.
Congressman Chaffetz, at this point, is the suspicion in Congress that Toyota had malevolent intent? It intentionally covered up a big flaw just to save profits, or is it that Toyota was lame? They kind of blew it, and they meant well, but they just have responded incompetently?
Well, I'd like to know what Toyota intends to do about it. I want to know what they knew and when they knew it. I don't understand this idea and this notion that there's some sort of negotiation with the safety board. It seems and strikes me as odd that if you have a serious transportation flaw and lives are in danger and people are literally dying, that you're in some sort of negotiation. I don't understand that from the government point of view, and I want to hear what Mr. Toyota has to say about that as well.
Rep. Kucinich, I believe Toyota recalled something like 8 million cars, and I think the complaints are somewhere a few thousand complaints. Have we had a recall for every American-made car that's ever had a few thousand complaints registered about it?
Well, if the recall is a life-threatening matter, you should recall it, period.
Right.
We know that in 2005, Toyota was working on redesigning software. There's an internal memo that shows they were working on redesigning software in response to complaints about problems with their electronic system. Now, if they knew that, they obviously knew something was wrong. And, you know, they're trying to blame it on floor mats, on sticky gas pedals, on the drivers. But if it was the electronic throttle control system and they did not notify the public and have the recall at that time, then they've got some big problems. And that's what we're going to find out tomorrow. And I agree with Mr. Chaffetz as far as the responsibility of the government as well, and seeing if the regulators were a little bit too cozy.
I think we just made news. A Democrat and a Republican agreed on our air on something.
Oh, it's easy.
Thank heavens.
Congressman Chaffetz, what would satisfy you? What ideally do you want to hear tomorrow from Mr. Toyota that would satisfy you?
I think to be able to look him in the eye and have him come here to the United States, which is very nice and very good of him to do, and look the American people in the eye and say, this is our commitment moving forward. Toyota is a responsible corporate citizen.
Has he not done that already in his op-ed, in his previous statements? There are some people who feel that Mr. Toyota will come to Capitol Hill tomorrow and there's nothing that he can say that will satisfy you. Is that a correct assessment or not?
No. Toyota's been a responsible corporate citizen. They're pledging to do the right thing. I've talked to local dealers, and there are millions of people with Toyota cars. And so the big question is, what are they going to do moving forward, and how are we going to, solve this problem so there are no more deaths?
Congressman Kucinich, just making sure, sir, if this were a recall involving GM or Chrysler, which the federal government owns a big chunk in, we'd be every bit as tough on these guys, and we'd be calling them the carpet we are with Toyota?
Our responsibility is to the American consumer, regardless of who's making the cars.
What do you say to that? Congressman Chase, I'd like to hear your thought on that. There are those who believe that the fact that the U.S. government is a stakeholder in General Motors makes them pick on Toyota.
No. Toyota manufactures many of these vehicles right here in the United States. They employ hundreds of thousands of people. I want to make sure we're holding the same standard to Ford and GM and everything else along the way. So it's about safety, and that's why the government has set up this Transportation Safety Board. And I want to make sure they're doing their job, because I worry that they're negotiating things that are unnegotiable as far as I'm concerned.
We're together on that.
But you see the reason for the question, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the timing, you got to look at it and look at the timing. But again, I think it's our job, role, and responsibility to make sure that we're holding that same high standard to all the auto manufacturers, not just Toyota.
So, Congressman Kucinich, just to be clear, a number of Toyota dealers held a news conference on Capitol Hill a short while ago, and they say that they're worried that basically the government has, in their words, actively been promoting General Motors products in an effort to make money off of Toyota's recent safety issues. That's incorrect?
That would be a mistake to do that. I mean, this is about safety. It's not about marketing and trying to get an advantage of one company over another. I mean, there's internal documents that show over a year ago that Toyota was actually celebrating the fact that they were able to limit the recall and keep their losses at about $100 million. I think that what we have to do is find out from Toyota, and then it's a cautionary note to everybody in the industry. This isn't about whether Toyota is a good car or not. This is about whether or not people did not disclose, as was their responsibility to the American consumers, material defects that could jeopardize lives. I mean, that's the bottom line here.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate your being